August 7th Memorial Park is located at the 1998 bomb blast scene along Haile Selassie Avenue in Nairobi, Kenya. It contains a notice board listing the names of all the people that were reported dead after the incidents. But August 7th was not to be like any other day. Just before 10:30 a.m., a truck came with two men in the cab pulled into an exit lane of the rear parking lot of the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi. The men demanded that the guard open the gate to let them in, but the guard refused. One of the men began shooting and the other threw a flash grenade. An armed guard ran for cover and called for help, but the one radio frequency and the phone lines were busy. Shortly thereafter, a bomb exploded in the rear parking lot of the U.S. Embassy. The bomb decimated the U.S. Embassy and flattened the Ufundi Cooperative House next door. Due to the embassy's location at a busy intersection, the corner of Moi Avenue and Haile Selassie Avenue, and next to both a railway station and a busy bus terminal, many more people going out of their day were killed and injured than those in the targeted embassy. An acidic smell filled the air, and blue-eyed Nairobians held handkerchiefs to their noses as they walked out. Within their vicinity of the targeted U.S. Embassy, there were small patches of blood mixed with shards of glass. The scene on the Haile Selassie side of the embassy was even more staggering. A huge crater remained where the bomb had gone off, and vehicles around the scene had been burned black and twisted into bizarre shapes. Like a scene frozen in time, several buses, including 2 city buses, stood mangled and silent on the avenue. Some buses still retained bodies that were terribly mutilated. After the blast, U.S. Marines were keeping people off the embassy site in an effort to protect them. Kenyans started digging through the rubble at the Ufundi Cooperative House, often with their bare hands to rescue those injured by the explosion and collapsed buildings. Kenyans came together to save foreigners and other Kenyans regardless of ethnicity at a time when ethnic tensions were high. They jumped in with minimal concern for their own safety to help those who had been injured, and continued to do so even after the international rescue teams arrived later that day. Kenyans, Israelites, French, British and Americans joined the rescue efforts, working around the clock as scores of other nations offered and provided support. The rescue workers were determined to save every person they could, spending hours and days digging closer to people trapped in the wreckage, sending in dogs to sniff for signs of life, who eagerly backed to their rescue teams when they found someone. President Moi declared an end to rescue operations after 4 days. At that time, it was difficult to establish the number of victims due to the injured and deceased being dispersed into hospitals and morgues across the city. The final death toll stood at 218, with over 5,000 injured and many more who are still challenged in their day-to-day lives as a result of the trauma. The trial for 4 men responsible for the bombings was held in U.S. federal court in New York City in March 2001. The U.S. Constitution limits its jurisdiction to crimes committed against U.S. citizens, so the men were charged with 302 counts, including the death of 12 Americans, but the jury knew that 224 people had been killed and around 5,000 had been injured, some permanently. All 4 men were found guilty on each of the 302 counts. Each man was given life imprisonment without parole. Some were relieved, but many more had hoped, for the 4 men would have been killed for the life they had took and devastation they caused on Kenya, Tanzania, and their people. For every American killed in the Osama bin Laden's jihad, over 20 Kenyans and Tanzanians were also killed. This united the world in sympathy for the victims and a near universal condemnation of the bombing. The world was stunned and united in support of the East Africans who were killed in war that was in The world was stunned and united in support of the East Africans who were killed in a war that was not their own. Kenyans from around the country continued their support by donating blood, blankets, and food to the victims of the attack. Matatu owners carried casualties to hospitals around the city for free charge. Businessmen donated equipment to help with debris removal, and truckloads of donations arrived from Mombasa and other regions. The African Medical and Research Foundation, AMREF, restocked supplies at 18 hospitals in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, turned its headquarters into a blood donation center, and in partnership with Kenyatta National Hospital, provided plastic and reconstructive surgery for over 300 blast victims. Grieving friends, co-workers, and wananchi, ordinary people began laying flowers at the bomb site the following day. Commemorations, memorials, and funerals occupied the lives of Kenyans for days. Thousands of Kenyans mourned and prayed at the Uhuru Park in Nairobi on Sunday, August 9th. The bodies of the 12 Americans who perished in the attack were welcomed home in a tribute at Andrews Air Force Base near Washington, D.C. on August 13th. In 2001, the August 7th Memorial Park was opened on the site of the terrible tragedy. In 2001, the August 7th Memorial Park was opened on the site of the terrible tragedy as a place of remembrance and reflection. The Memorial Park also functions as the center of outreach to the public to educate Kenyans on the appalling consequences of terrorism and violence.